and welcome to Connect Live. I'm Dawn Peters, and today we're going to learn all about branding from the expert Jen Dalton of BrandMirror. Hi Jen, how are you?
I'm great, how are you?
Great, thank you. Thank you for joining us here today. I'm very excited about this topic.
Absolutely, I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, tell us a little bit about BrandMirror and what it does for people.
Sure, so I started BrandMirror about 5 years ago, and the idea was to help people develop their own personal brand, just like companies have a brand. We all have our own reputations. Whether you have a good one or not is different. And so I really wanted BrandMirror to be a company that could help people find their voice, really differentiate themselves, whether it's in looking for a new job or getting new clients, but be confident about who they are and what makes them unique and stand out.
And so what made you go into this?
So I'd been in the corporate space for about 10 years doing brand and marketing strategy work. And on my 10th anniversary, I sort of looked around and said, I don't know that I want to do this for the next 10 years. And at the same time, I'd been pursuing my executive MBA at Georgetown. And in our program, we had started talking about personal brand. Because when you go back to grad school, you've spent all this money to pivot, and now what? And so some of my classmates were my first clients, and I got certified in personal branding during grad school, separate program. And I launched my business the day before graduation. So
wow,
it all just happened.
Wow, I always love to hear the stories because it shows your passion and motivation for why you do what you do.
Absolutely.
So what do you think are some of the common mistakes that people go about, either when they're starting a new business or then as they move forward in that business?
You know, I think a lot of times people forget what it is that really gets a business going in the beginning is the passion. And the entrepreneur is really the face of the company because your company doesn't have a brand yet. And so how are you as an individual being visible, being seen, and really know your message? A lot of people think the world is my audience, and that's just not the case. And I think people want to work with leaders, not logos. So for entrepreneurs, they have to think about their personal brand and how it informs the business brand at the same time, because those go hand in hand and they have to grow over time as well. You don't want to have one be louder than the other. It's a real nice balance.
So what should their thought process be about? Should it be what message they're getting out through their logo, or what their company does, or the audience they're targeting? What should they be focusing on?
If only it were so simple. I think it's looking at and really assessing what makes me as a person unique. What are the expertise, what's the strength that I'm bringing that people want to pay me for? That's sort of the first question. And they really have to be able to answer that honestly. They're not going to be good at everything. Pick one or two. I actually give my clients 3 things to say they're good at. When you blend those together, that's where the magic happens. That's where you are differentiated. And then I think to your point, the audience. You have to know who's your audience, who's willing to pay you. And then you also have to know, because we all have them, I hate to break it to your viewers, competitors. Who else is out there? And between those 3 things, you can sort of triangulate what's the best message, who to give it to, and make sure that you stand out and really are different from whoever's in the marketplace right now.
So what are some of the things with their branding can companies, how can they stand out through their branding that they're different? How can they convey that message through their branding?
I think of it as evidence-based branding. So, in court, you're innocent till proven guilty. In business, I think you're not credible till you're proven credible. And so for entrepreneurs building their personal brand and for companies, when's your first case study? How are you making sure you're capturing the changes you're making for a customer? You're adding value. So case studies are really important. I also think having something to say. So being very clear about when you go out to network, how are you introducing yourselves? How are you building relationships? If people like to be more visible, they can blog, they can speak. There are a lot of ways to build credibility, but you have to start. If you're out of sight, you're definitely out of mind.
Yes, and I think a lot of people have a problem with whether that when they go out in public or visible, what to say or how to voice their company and what the business does, and how to communicate that correctly. So is that something you help people with as well?
Absolutely. I think the 2 skills that elude people the most, the first is listening and really hearing what people around you are talking about, what they want to share, what their successes are. Get people talking first, and then you can figure out conversationally, which is the second thing, It's not a sale, it's a conversation where you're conversational and it's relaxed and comfortable and you're not trying to sell someone. You're really saying, oh, wow, I didn't know that was something in your business that you were working on. I'm happy to sit down and talk with you about that. That's one of my favorite things to look at and analyze.
Right.
But
yes.
It should never be a sell.
No.
It has to really be authentic, and I'd like to help, and then you go from there. So I think being able to clearly get your message, but only because you've been listening, and you need to be able to adjust it as you're talking with people.
So you help people and companies with every part of how to get their message and their brand across, no matter what it might be. Is that correct?
Yeah, it could be anything for startups. It could be developing a pitch deck or a pitch presentation, because that really is the founder telling their story to get investments as well as getting the company brand. It could be, how do you create brand ambassadors? So one of the biggest things companies are missing is leveraging their employees to spread the word about the company. There's some ridiculous statistics. I mean, not ridiculous in a bad way, but just mind-blowing, that if you have an employee share social media and say, wow, I really had a great team builder, I love working at such and such company, that message will be seen 564% more than if the company posted from its own page, wow, we had a great team builder.
Yes.
Because people believe people, and especially when it's more of like a recommendation and it just seems more authentic. If it comes from the company, they think, well, the company is supposed to say that. But if the employee says that on their own, wow, they must really like it.
Yes.
So I think companies really under leverage, whether it's the CEO, blogging or writing, or HR. I mean, how many companies are fighting for talent? And so when I go in and work with leadership, it's really about, where are you trying to add value to your business? If it's talent, if it's innovation, if it's being a thought leader, we'll find the people and build their personal brands very intentionally.
And you mentioned that word intentionally there. I know you're big about building intentional brands for people. Talk more about that.
Sure. I think if you go about it willy-nilly and, oh, I've got some networking events coming up, I'll go, and you haven't planned it, you're so much more likely to fail. And I believe in planning your work and working your plan.
Right.
And so whether it's, who are the 3 people you want to meet at a networking event, whether it's, where do we want to be 24 months from now and working back, everything should be intentional. Even if you're an amazing genius CEO and you're going to speak on a panel about something you know everything about, you should prepare. You always have to be intentional.
Right.
And prepare.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, talking about being intentional, obviously social media is a massive platform, but I've heard a lot of business owners question the power of it to do with their brand.
Sure.
So maybe you can talk to that.
I think for social media, the big thing, if I'm going through a Facebook page for a business and they're not getting a lot of engagement, that tells me they're not posting the right content, and it's just not the right material. So a lot of times social media doesn't work because companies really don't know exactly what they're doing.
Right.
And it is hard and it does take time, but companies should budget some time and money and even hire someone to come in and really help them with that.
Right.
Because social media is absolutely the wave of now and
Yes.
definitely into the future. There's an interesting statistic from Weber Shandwick that if a CEO had a Twitter account, they were perceived as 75% more innovative.
Ah.
Not even that they used it correctly.
Wow.
Just that they had
Just they
it.
had one.
They had one. So, if your company's on social media consistently and providing value, and the ins and outs of social media, like hashtags and things like that, you can do a lot more with it, and it doesn't have to cost a lot either.
Yeah. So tell me some of the clients you work with then, and maybe some stories or some success stories that you've had.
Sure. Where to start? I love all of my clients equally. When I think of one of my clients, Tiffany Fawcett, she's a professional golf instructor. And with her, we worked a lot on what is it that makes her unique. We worked on her website, but we also put together packets to submit for awards. And so she actually was LPGA Teacher of the Year for the Northeast, which was a huge deal.
Yeah.
She was top 50 instructors for kids across the country. She's amazing. So she already had a great personal brand, but nobody knew about it, right? And so some people knew about it, but not enough, right? And so it really was about packaging it and getting the word out there to make it really clear and effective.
Fantastic. And maybe from the other side, what are some of the things that you've learned along the way that have either changed your brand or helped your clients in a different way than you started out doing?
Sure, I think all entrepreneurs and business owners in general should look at their products and services on a regular basis and listen to the market and tweak and change them.
Yeah.
And so in the beginning, I was much more focused on personal brand, individuals. Now I do a lot more work with executive teams and almost make it like a team builder. Let's all learn about each other's personal brand, and then now let's go execute and do interesting things to make the company more visible.
Right.
And so doing more corporate work, I've been speaking a lot about women in leadership, women in business, how personal branding can help women accelerate their career better, faster. And so different things that I didn't know at the beginning would necessarily happen, but if you're listening and paying attention, you can adjust your business and really make it meet the needs of your market.
Yeah, so maybe talk a little bit about personal branding then, because I know we've been focusing on business branding. What about personal branding?
So I think for personal branding, as I said earlier, you have one. And I believe people like to follow leaders, not logos. And so if you can put a face to your company, whether you're a solopreneur or you have 1,000 employees or 50,000, it's really important to know, especially if you're hiring millennials and Gen X too, but for sure millennials, they're looking to see who are the leaders at this company that I'm going to go work at, because I want to believe in the company, I want to believe in the leaders. So now more than ever, it's important that employees are behaving on their personal social media so they don't get in trouble, including people who are applying to work at a company, that they're behaving on social media. But it's really important for leaders to figure out what they stand for and to represent that online as well.
Well, absolutely. That comes back to you saying even the CEOs who have social media accounts, they're showing their face, their brand,
yes.
And future employees are going to be looking at that and watching
absolutely.
that. Yeah.
And what's the tone and how are they? Are they, polite or not? Even if you look at, Elon Musk does some amazing customer-focused tweets that if you worked there, you would be proud of that.
Right.
Right. Conversely, you can look at United Airlines CEO where, he's said things after incidents on the airline where I'm not sure I'd want to work there or fly there.
Yes.
I think they're trying to make improvements, but that all matters.
And it's a lot more transparent nowadays.
It's a lot more transparent.
Yes.
And I think if you're not putting words out there, someone else is filling in the gap for you. So it's much better to control the narrative instead of just cross your fingers and hope that it all works out.
Right. And maybe before people could hide behind the logo, and they can't do that now.
No.
So it's far more than just the logo.
And there are people who also write nasty complaints and reviews online too. And so your company should be proactive in building a reputation, because when you need your reputation to work, if you don't have one, it's already too late.
Yes.
If you have a complaint, yes, you can fix that, but you really want to be building a positive reputation all along the way.
Right.
So that you earn some forgiveness if you do have something go wrong from your clients and from your employees.
Yes. What would you say to some graduates or some people who are just starting a new career, looking to start their own business from a branding perspective?
I think it's really important for young people especially, but at any age, to think about what you know and share it. A friend of mine just moved into the big data space a few years ago. And he was like, I don't think I should write about big data. I'm not an expert. And I said, that's okay. So what he did, which was perfect, is he went and interviewed the top 5 big data people in this market in DC and wrote about what they said were the top trends. So that showed me work ethic, that he could go do interviews and actually get on the phone with CEOs. So I think for grad students, for kids coming out of college, don't think that you can't build a personal brand. You just have to be intentional. You might need to be creative, but you do want to be professional and thoughtful. But it absolutely can work for anyone at any age if you have a plan and you know what you're trying to do. Now,
I know you have a book out called The Intentional Entrepreneur, which is great sort of timing for that. So can you talk through the approach of the book and what people can gain from it and learn from it?
Sure. So I have been thinking about writing a book for 2 years, largely because every time I worked with my clients, we went through the same process. We went through the same questions. We went through a lot of the same issues. And I thought, wow, if I my goal that year was to help 1,000 clients,
Wow,
face-to-face
fantastic.
speaking or working together. And I said, if I want to help 10,000 people or 100,000 people, what would I do differently? And I thought, I need to write a book. And so the Intentional Entrepreneur is two parts. The first are all of my processes and tools that I use, most of them, with my clients. And then I feature 21 different entrepreneurs all the way to CEOs of larger companies. And what were the conversations we were having about their personal brand at that time? And those are all sort of mini case studies. So you can understand, well, why should you name your company this versus that? Because a lot of people don't do a great job naming their company.
Right.
That's like the first big mistake. All the way to when you're CEO of 500 people or 1,000, how is your personal brand, how are your values influencing the company over time? Because it's still your company, you're still the face of it. And so how does that leadership continue from first to beginning to somebody who's been in business for 20 years?
Right.
So I think it's a good book for people who are trying to work through the process. It's kind of like a Sherpa for you in paperback or ebook form.
And so how do they get hold of that if they want to get a copy of it?
Absolutely. So they can go on Amazon. It's available on paperback or ebook. And that's, there's lots of reviews so they can get a sense of what's in it.
Right.
But I'm also happy, I've got a video on my website I'm happy to share, obviously, that they can look at and learn more about it. But it's a good tool. It's I hope it's very inspiring, but also just practical.
Right.
Like you should be able to take away knowledge and do things differently.
Right, like a real workbook.
A real book.
Right,
yes.
Fantastic. So what about when companies move forward and they want to either change their logo or change their company name because their business has taken a sort of turn in some ways? Mm-hmm. What should they be thinking about? How can they do that?
Rebranding is really tricky. It usually will happen at least once, whether you start off and you realize, wow, we need to be a little bit more professional, maybe we're targeting a different market. Hopefully you do enough planning in the beginning that you can get it right. But people need to think about, what are their customers going to think? How do they ease into it? It's change management.
Right.
So how do they let people know why we're doing it? Get people excited about it. Bring your employees and your customers along the journey. It shouldn't be a surprise where people walk in and they're like, oh, everything's new and different, right? It's something to celebrate if you're growing bigger and you're getting bigger and you're changing things to keep pace with growth. Be transparent. It's something that as long as people know about it, they can come with you on the journey.
Yes.
It's not just about changing your pens and the notepads.
Right.
It's how are people going to be affected and how do you make it really work?
Yeah, because your brand is everything. It's all
the
encompassing.
touch points.
Yes, yeah.
And there's a lot of things you can do to build your brand, like sponsorships, where make sure you're sponsoring the right things when you launch your new logo. Make sure the timing is right. It's a lot of tactical project management. It does need to be done thoughtfully. It shouldn't be done too quickly.
Right.
You want to get customer feedback on the logo. It's never going to be perfect to everyone. But if you love it and it's meaningful and it's really done by a professional graphic design team, then, it's always worth considering, but there are always consequences. You just have to balance it.
Right. And of course, all those types of actions and thoughts you can help people with. So if somebody worked with you, what can they expect? How would that be? What would that look like? Sure.
I have clients and different engagements, right? Some could be 90 days where we're doing a very specific set of things that they're trying to build out. Some companies hire me for 6 months to 12 months. So I really work with clients to listen and understand what they need and build the custom solution that's going to work for them. But I always want to be available. I always want to be open and really listen to what they want. So it's not going to be me coming in and saying, this is the right logo, go with it. I'll come in and be pragmatic and thoughtful and ask questions and listen and really just be a great partner.
Right, fantastic. So is there anything, maybe 2 or 3 key things that you want people should know about you and how you work?
Sure, I believe you have to know people before you can work with them. And so I do complimentary consults where I'll either have a phone call or meet in person and really talk and get to know each other. Because not all customers are a good fit for me, and I'm not going to be a good fit for everybody either. It just depends. And this is a very personal set of work. You're talking about who you are and what you want to do next and what you stand for. And so I want to make sure it's a good fit.
Right.
So I think that complimentary consult, that first or second conversation is really important to understand, is this going to be a good fit?
Yeah.
You know, because we want it to be a win-win and fun for everybody.
And so if somebody's listening, perhaps you could tell them exactly where they can find you and how they can get in touch with you to get one of those complimentary consults.
Absolutely. So I certainly can be found on LinkedIn. My website, BrandMirror.com, also has a complimentary consult where you can sign up, find time that works for you, and schedule time. Always via Twitter or Facebook. You know, people can message me. I pay attention to all of that myself. And so there are a lot of ways to find me.
Right.
And I'm always out networking and doing things as well.
Because you're getting your brand out there.
That's right. You've got to be visible.
Absolutely.
I'm very friendly. I don't bite. People can approach me at any time.
Well, I've certainly loved learning about your branding in our various conversations leading up to this, but thank you so much for coming here today and sharing your wealth of expertise and knowledge, and I'm sure you'll have a lot of people contacting you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well,
this
thank
has been
you.
great.
Thank you so much. So thanks everybody for joining us today here on Connect Live. If you want to be a guest on the show, please go to connectionhub.biz.